The Detroit Pistons obviously have been playing some really good basketball, especially on the defensive end. However, there's an unusual suspect that's actually helping them unlock their offense. We're going to talk about that today's episode, Locked On Pistons Podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Khahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Khahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We are now only 200, I think, as I'm recording this, or less than 200 now, 195 subscribers away from 10,000. Help us get there by the end of this season. We're getting so close. Please help us get there if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Later on in the podcast, I want to talk about Malik Beasley, who set the Pistons' single-season three-point record before the All-Star break has even happened. Crazy. And then I want to give credit and talk about other veterans that have really helped the Pistons this year, and I don't feel like we've given enough talk or credit to as the season's gone on. So we'll talk about them later on. But the Pistons are coming off, I'm recording this the day after the Detroit Pistons demolish the Chicago Bulls. I mean, they absolutely obliterated them. I don't think I've seen, I can't say that. I don't think I've seen a demolition job like that in quite a while for the Detroit Pistons. It's been a while since I've seen something like that happen. They destroyed the Bulls. But I want to kind of zoom out from just the Bulls game and talk about how well the Pistons have played since January 1st. Now, I'm going to have some stats here that I'm going to read. But before we get into the stats, I want to make this clear as well, because a few episodes ago, we looked at their numbers and how they played, etc., since January 1st. And I had quite a few people say, why are you doing since January 1st? Because Ivy went down, you're rooting for Ivy to be hurt. Like, okay. Let me just get this out the way before we go any further. First of all, January 1st is the change of the new year. Let's be real here. It's the change of the new year, is where a lot of people draw sample sizes from. That's one. And two, since January 1st is when Ausar Thompson started, and they have a new starting lineup. Like, it has this is not Jane Ivy sucks, or we're acting like Jane. That's nothing to do with this. It just so happens that Ivy got hurt on the 1st of the year. Like, I can't help that. It is what it is. But we're doing since January 1st. Do not sit here and show up in my DMs and my Twitter mentions and the comments saying, why are you doing since January 1st? You're only doing that because it's Ivy. No, because it's actually literally the change of the new year and when they made the change to the starting lineup. But anyways, I want to read you guys some of these stats. The Detroit Pistons these are the Detroit Pistons rankings since January 1st. Their offensive rating, which we're really going to get into in a minute, but their offensive rating is 14th since January 1st. Their defensive rating is 3rd since January 1st. They're 9th in net rating. They're 6th in points off turnovers. They're 2nd in fast break points. They're 4th in points in the paint. 7th in steals. And they're tied for 3rd in the most important stat, wins. The Pistons have completely flipped the switch since January 1st, and they are playing legitimately. Like, no troll, no exaggeration, really good basketball since January 1st. And it's an unusual suspect that is leading the way, or one of the main reasons why their offense is being unlocked, and it's Ausar Thompson. I don't think anyone would have expected me to come out and say at any point this year and say Ausar Thompson is unlocking the Pistons' offense. The defense, 100%. But the play of Ausar Thompson on the offensive end of the floor unlocking the Pistons' offense, I don't think anyone would have expected that. But that is what's happening. That's what we're watching happen in real life. Right before our eyes, we are watching it happen. Some more stats I want to read you guys to buffer this point. Over the last 10 games, the Detroit Pistons' offensive rating with Ausar Thompson on the floor, over the last 10 games, when he is on the floor, they have an offensive rating of 117.7. That would rank 7th in the entire NBA. The entire NBA. Their offense over the last 10 games is 3 points better with Assar on the floor than with him off the floor. I'm going to say it again. The Detroit Pistons offense has been better with Assar on the floor than with him off by over 3 points. Why is that? Well, quite a few reasons. First reason, I think, is very clearly the number one reason, is because they're turning defense into offense. They are getting out in transition. They are getting out in the fast break. And he is a monster and just an alien in transition, in fast break, as a ball handler, as a transition playmaker. He's one of the best I'm watching in the NBA as a transition playmaker. I feel like every single time he gets the ball off of a defensive rebound, off of a steal, even off a made basket, honestly, if they play fast, he is one of the best playmakers I'm watching at just generating good shots for the Pistons almost every time he's put in those situations. So that's number one, by far. Defense turning stuff, or turning turnovers, steals, defensive rebounds, turning that into early and easy offense with how he can play as a playmaker, like I said, and then also, obviously, as a finisher, as a lob catcher, running the wings. He's been an absolute menace to teams in that regard. And that's one of the main reasons, I'd probably say the main reason, the Detroit Pistons are second in fast break points since January 1st, is because Assar's been playing more, and they've been getting more stops. He's been generating more stops, generating steals, and getting out in fast break situations. And whether it's him creating the shot for someone else or him getting his own shot, it's been hard for any team in the NBA to deal with. So that's first. Secondly, they have finally realized, and we've talked about it ad nauseum on the podcast, like we've talked about a ton, really. JB has finally, and whether this had to do with the minutes restriction or what, but we have finally started to see Ausar Thompson used with the ball in his hands. We are finally starting to see point Assar. We are finally starting to see secondary creator Ausar Thompson. We are now finally starting to see primary ball handler Ausar Thompson. We are starting to see that, and he is generating nothing but good offense for the Pistons in this regard. Just straight up, flat out, good offense for the Detroit Pistons. Over his last 11 games, I include one more game in just to, boost the stats a little bit. Over the last 11 games, 11.5 points, 5.2 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 2.2 steals, just 1.3 turnovers, on 62% shooting. He's getting to the free throw line around 4 times a game. And the craziest thing about this is in just 24 minutes of action. He's only playing 24 minutes per game over the last 11 games. This is all, he's not even breaking 30 minutes. Hell, he's not even breaking 25 minutes of action. And he's doing this. He's filling the box score in limited sample. He's getting stops in the defensive end and forcing them out in transition. In the half court, they're allowing Cade to play off ball some and take some of the pressure off him, and letting Assar run the offense, letting Assar run some pick and roll, letting Assar create offense for others, and the aggressiveness of Assar as a scorer. We broke down, I had a film breakdown yesterday. I posted on my personal YouTube channel. A lot of people have checked it out. We'll have more coming. Check it out at Khahil. I did a whole breakdown about how Ausar Thompson's aggressiveness as a scorer at the rim is warping this team's offense. Before, remember, I complained about it. It was one thing coming out of the draft, and we talked about it last week, or I think maybe 2 weeks ago. But coming out the draft, that was the one criticism between the difference between him and his brother, is that his brother was a lot more aggressive just as a scorer, a natural feel as a scorer, whereas Assar was more passive as a scorer and more of a playmaker, and didn't always go up with shots at the rim. And you saw that a little bit in his rookie year, and you were seeing that as he worked his way back conditioning-wise this year. But over the last 11 or so games, he started to look more healthy. He started to look like his stamina is getting back up. And he's getting more aggressive at the rim. I mean, just look at the last few games. Against Chicago last night, he had 16 points on 8 shots in just 22 minutes. Like, just 22 minutes. The previous game against Charlotte, in just 23 minutes, 16 shots, 7 of 9 shooting. The previous game before that, 14 points on 5 of 7 shooting. And he's generating free throws. These are his free throw numbers the last few games, by the way, everybody. Last 5 games, 6 free throws, 7 free throws, 6 free throws, 5 free throws. Oh, and the game he had 2 free throws, the Pistons were up by 70 damn near, and they didn't even have to play in the second half. He's generating free throws. He's getting people in foul trouble. He's hitting his free throws at a higher clip. The last 11 games, he's around 70% from the free throw line, right where I'd like him to be at. He's hitting his free throws. He's drawing free throws. He's attacking the rim. He's scoring at the rim. He's getting the Pistons easy offense in transition and in fast break. Griffin, our friend of the podcast, Matt Griffin, was on the podcast, or not the podcast, he was on playback with me yesterday watching the Pistons game. If you want to join playback and watch the Pistons games with us, I'll link it down below. We've had around 70, 80 people in there every single game so far. We're trying to get it to where there's 100, 200 plus people watching the games with us every single game. So if you want to come join us, watch the game together instead of alone by yourself, click the link down below. But Griff said this in the playback room. He said, I think Assar's been the best player for the Detroit Pistons, or the second best player for the Pistons over the last month. And I don't know how you can really push back against that too much. There's some other competitors. I'm not saying it's completely 100%, but with how much he's impacted their defense, and then now he's being impactful offensively, where people say he couldn't be. He's warped their defense. The Pistons' offense that was middle of the pack is playing tremendously with him on the floor over the last 10 games. He's doing it in all kinds of different ways, in limited minutes, in limited samples, stuff in the stat sheet, and now he's being more aggressive as a scorer as well, and it's working. And he's having the ball in his hands more, and he has a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio over the last 11 games. He's not turning the ball over crazy. He's creating good offense. He's been fantastic, and I don't think anybody would have thought that Ausar Thompson would be one of the main reasons why the Pistons' offense is being unlocked. But we are watching it happen now, and you're watching Assar blossom and really improve right before our eyes and become one of the Pistons' most important and impactful players on the roster. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil how you guys feel about how Ausar Thompson has played over the last month or so. How do you guys think he's been the second best player for the Detroit Pistons? And what do you think his role is moving forward for this team? How high do you think he can get with this team? Let me know all that, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. When we come back, veterans need to get some credit, and not just Malik Beasley. Yes, I'm talking about Tobias Harris. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into a routine. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need, all within your budget. There's something for every style and every home, no matter what your space or budget looks like. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space and every person. What is your decor style? Why did you pick these items? You have all these questions that you can answer with Wayfair. It makes it super easy for you. And again, no matter what your space or style is like, give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home with Wayfair.com. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Now, I want to give credit to, and really just give a full segment to the Pistons veterans. Because a lot of talk, obviously, this year has been about Cade Cunningham. And deservingly so. Cade he's an all-star. He might be All-NBA third team. He's been fantastic. He's been the franchise player that everyone wanted to see him become. He's been all of that. So he deserves all the praise. At the beginning of the year, we were talking about Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey was playing well. He deserved to be talked about. And now we're talking a lot about Ausar Thompson and Jalen Duren, who have been really good, over the last month or so. Those players deserved their credit and deserved to be talked about. But there are some players, I would say, that got a lot of criticism and have kind of just been pushed to the back burner. And their start to the season, the opinions to the start of their season have not adjusted and evolved as the seasons went on. And we're going to talk about Malik Beasley later because he set the single-season three-point record, again, before the All-Star break, which is just absolutely insane. I don't know, how to read into that. There's two, we'll save that talk for later. So we'll talk about Beasley a little bit later. The guy I want to really spend a lot of the time talking about is Tobias Harris. I understand Tobias is having one of his worst years right now. shooting from deep. He has not been very good as a three-point shooter this year. He's shooting 32% from deep. That is true. That is true. And I understand that he's shooting or only scoring 13 points a game, which would be his lowest since his second year in the NBA. I get all of that. However, he deserves to have some credit here. This team would not be as good as they are right now without Tobias Harris on this team. And that's just straight up. That is just the straight up truth. They would not be this good without Tobias Harris. He has had an enormous impact on this team. Enormous. When it comes to, let's go this route first. Off the court. You guys see all the little social media posts we're getting from the Pistons social media team, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be on Twitter. You know, we've had Johnny Kane on the podcast. He's talked about the chemistry and the vibes in the locker room. We just had Natalie on the podcast, and she talked about it as well. You can talk about all that. I can tell you guys as well, confirming. I can tell you guys with 100% fact that I have heard nonstop about how great of a leader and veteran Tobias Harris has been. And you cannot sit here and say that the Pistons locker room, as close as it is as tight as it is, and the vibes are so off the charts, and talk about how great it is to see this team vibing with each other. You can't talk about all that without starting with Tobias Harris. I know everyone wants to go immediately to Malik Beasley, and we'll get to him too. He contributes a lot to it as well. But we cannot act like that Tobias Harris does not lead that. Tobias Harris has been an absolutely A-plus veteran on and off the court for the Detroit Pistons. He's been absolutely fantastic, and he's been one of the absolute main reasons why this locker room is being talked about by Trajan Langdon, by the front office, by Malik Beasley, by other players, as one of the closest locker rooms, the funnest locker rooms in the NBA. You don't get that without Tobias Harris. He deserves credit for that. That's one. Two, his play on the court and his impact on the court is really being undersold, to be honest. Now, look, I'll say this. Do the Pistons eventually need to get a star or an upgrade at the four eventually in the future? Yeah, they need to have a guy that can be a two-way player, probably be that 20-point scorer from that position, which is fine. Yes, you can acknowledge those things while also acknowledging that Tobias Harris is having a large impact in the Pistons winning on the court. On the court. Let's look at this number real quick. Out of any player for the Detroit Pistons that has played rotation minutes, Tobias Harris is by far number one in the biggest on-off net rating difference. The team is 9.3 points better with Tobias Harris than without him. That's by far the biggest difference of any player on this team. The next closest that you could bring up is Malik Beasley at 5.6 on-off difference. This team performs so much better with Tobias Harris on the floor. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he is their one true four on the team. And we talked about it in the offseason. This team desperately, and I mean desperately, needed to have an actual 2024 modern NBA four. Not a 5 masquerading as a 4, not a 3 masquerading as a 4. They needed an actual 4 on this team, and it would change things for them. They got Tobias, and look at it. It's completely changed. It's opened up the floor. It changes how defenses have to guard them. Tobias is actually a scoring option at the 4 position. And it's absolutely showing up on the court and in the on-off difference. Without Tobias on the floor, they struggle to have anyone else that can fill the role that Tobias brings. So Tobias Harris he hasn't been as fantastic when you look at the box score. He's been worse in the box score than I thought he would be. Yes, that is true. But his impact is still the same. His impact has been the same. It's been just as impactful off the floor in the locker room and just as impactful on the floor because of the things he can do and the things that, he changes the way defenses have to guard the Pistons. And this is the last thing I'll say about Tobias as well. Listen, I'm not going to lie to you guys. If you've been watching the Pistons over the last few weeks, you have to give it. He has hit some really timely shots. Now, look, not threes. When it comes to outside shots, he hasn't been. He has not been good from beyond the arc. Let's just keep it at that. He's been worse than I think anyone could have expected from beyond the arc. However, outside of that, like post-ups, getting good offense when the Pistons go on a drought in the fourth quarter, he's been getting those. when it comes to getting buckets, moving around more. He's moving around within the offense more than I've ever seen him move around. He's usually not this active as a cutter, as a guy just moving around, creating open angles to get the ball. Offensive rebounds, putting it back. He had 4 offensive rebounds against Philadelphia. He is hitting key shots for the Pistons late in games and when they're going on droughts of not being able to score. He has done that multiple times over the last few games, like multiple times. Again, not threes, but middies, like I said, post fadeaways, post hooks, getting into the paint, scoring, and one. Like, he has numerous times. Over the last 8 games, he's shooting 54% from the field. Now, it's only 18% from deep. Not good, like I said, from beyond the arc. But he's shooting 90% from the free throw line, shooting 54% from the floor. He's hitting his middies, he's hitting his post shots, and he's hitting key shots for him. And over the last 8 games, he's averaging 18 points a game. 18 points a game, 1.5 steals on 54% shooting. That right there is the Tobias that people really expected, the 18 points per game guy. Could his 3-point percentage get higher? 100%. They need him to hit more threes. But despite that, he's finding other ways to impact this team and score and hit timely buckets for them. Like I said at the beginning of this, I know Tobias didn't start off the year very good at all. He struggled to start the year. And he still hasn't really turned it around when it comes to 3-point shooting. However, he has found other ways to impact this team offensively on the floor, especially over the last 8 or so games. He's been clutch. He's been clutch for them at numerous moments. And off the floor, he's been tremendous. Tobias has been big time for him, man. And I understand he's getting paid a lot. And I understand people wanted to see more scoring from him. But his impact is undeniable. He has been an incredibly impactful player and person for this team. They would not be here without Tobias Harris. They just would not be. Just flat out. And he deserves to have his credit and deserves to be talked about. And that's why I decided to give him this segment for him. He's been great, man. He has been overall greatly impactful for this team. Greatly impactful. And I think he's getting better. As the season's gone on, he's looking more and more better. Or looking more and more, I would say, like the Tobias Harris I was expecting to see. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil how you guys feel about how Tobias has played over the last, 8, 9 games. How do you guys feel about his impact off the floor in the locker room? And how do you feel? Do you think the Pistons would be here if Tobias was not on the roster? Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. When we come back, another veteran. Malik Beasley sets the single-season 3-point record for the Detroit Pistons. We're not even at All-Star break yet. I don't know what to say. Running a small business means you're wearing a lot of hats. Your personal phone becomes your business phone, and before you know it, you're juggling customer calls all day and night. As your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number. That's where OpenPhone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to help keep your work and personal life separate. For just $15 a month, the cost of a few coffees, you get complete transparency and visibility with everything happening with your business phone number. OpenPhone works through an app on your phone or computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It also uses AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, so you'll have a rundown of your calls and action items the second you hang up. And if you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring you never miss an opportunity to engage. Right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off your first 6 months when you go to openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA for 20% off your first 6 months. OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over with no additional charge. That's with OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I want to let you guys know again, at the end of the podcast, we have playback where we watch the games together with Piston fans, Locked On Pistons community. We've had, like I said, 80-plus people in there as of late. We really want to grow this and get this to 100-plus people, 200-plus people. Instead of watching the game by yourself, you're in the room watching the game on the screen with me and the rest of the Pistons fan base right there with you. It's a lot of fun. We've had a ton of fun the last few games, especially the blown-out games. Like, we've just been in there shooting the bleep for what it's worth. All game. Like, it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed talking with all you guys and just chilling. It's been a lot of fun. You also subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. We're less than 200 subscribers away, man. Less than 200 subscribers from 10K. I know a lot of you guys were here since the beginning, man. I can't believe we're nearing it on 10,000. Next goal is going to be 20K. But we need to get the 10K first. Less than 200 subscribers away. Hit that subscribe button. Help us get there, man. If you want to see the film breakdowns I do, I'm trying to do them almost every single day, at least every other day, over at Khahil on YouTube as well. Talking about veterans, though, continuing on, Malik Beasley has been... So I made a mistake a few episodes ago. I said Malik Beasley was the best value signing the Pistons have ever had that I can remember. That's my fault. I was wrong with that. I was really young when they did this, but I still probably should have known this. Chauncey Billups obviously was signed for a very minimum contract. I think it was a $6 million contract or something. Very cheap. Very cheap. And obviously he went on to be, Finals MVP and championship player, etc. So Hall of Fame, number in the rafters. So obviously Chauncey, my fault. Correct me on that. But over the last 15 years, since Chauncey, I think it has to be Malik Beasley. This dude is on a 1-year, $6 million contract. He's legitimately possible to win Sixth Man of the Year. He's been absolutely fantastic. And before February 12th, before the All-Star break, he has set the Pistons single-season three-point record. He's going to absolutely obliterate it. Now, it was previously held by Saddiq Bey a few years ago. He just broke it a few years ago. Malik is going to absolutely shatter this. He has 2-3 months to go, 2.5 more months to go. He's going to absolutely obliterate this, dominate it. I don't know where the record's going to be left off at when he's done, but he's been, if that doesn't show you just how fantastic and all-world Malik Beasley has been, I don't know what else will. We talk about how he's been in the locker room, and I really actually loved the quote he gave after this last game. They asked him, I think it was Hunter of The Athletic, that asked him about, what was it? I think it was asking him who plays Call of Duty. Do you guys ever have to, fight over who has to play or something? Do you guys run out? Do you have to force people to play video games? Something like that. And he was like, no, absolutely the opposite. All of us are trying to play. I've never been on a team that's this close. We have to run multiple squads on Call of Duty. I'm assuming he's talking about Warzone. He's like, we have to run multiple squads because there's just so many people wanting to play. We can't fit everybody to one, so we have to split up and kind of make squads and play separately. But we all are constantly trying to play, and all is just so close off the court. So I love that quote, and he's been fantastic in the locker room. Real quickly as well, Trajan Langdon, completely, a grand slam home run in this past offseason with the signings he get. He's done it. Trajan batted 1,000 this past offseason with the veterans. I could not have imagined this locker room being as close as it is. These dudes legit love each other. This is reminding me of Brooklyn Nets locker room a few years ago when D'Lo first went over there and they were dancing on the bench. We had Jared Dudley doing the, that famous gif that gets, circulate throughout NBA Twitter. But Trajan Langdon knocked this last offseason out of the park. I wanted to say in regards to Malik Beasley and the three-point record, I don't know which one I should really be thinking more. You could look at it as Malik is so great, and he is. That 100% is the case. I'm not trying to minimize it at all. Malik has been great, and it's insane that he did this before February or the All-Star break. That's true. This might be one of those things where two things are true at once. They're not mutually exclusive. That's true. And then also it's man, the Pistons, that kind of shows how bad the Pistons, shooting has been over the last 15 years. For them to, how far behind they've been with, the modern NBA and how far they've been down for Malik to be able to break this in half a season. It's good to see the Pistons are coming back up. That's all I'll say. And Malik has been great, but man, the fact that I was saying this even a few years ago when Saddiq broke it. It's is Saddiq the best shooter in Pistons history? No. But he's going to be the one with the record because the Pistons just haven't had volume shooting for 15 years. It just hasn't. Well, obviously ever, but especially over the modern NBA when it's, evolved as more of a three-point shooting league, the Pistons still haven't been able to find someone to match that. And Malik obviously has destroyed it. He's doing great, but man, it was that I kind of had both those thoughts when it happened. But Malik's been great, man. The veterans have been tremendous for this team. Him, Tobias, Paul Reed. Every time Paul Reed comes into the game, it feels like he makes an argument that, hey, I'm actually the best center on the team. And he's been fine not playing. Like, he got waived and wanted to come back. He's been on the team. He's been on the bench, being a great vet, not making any fuss or being mad that he's not getting minutes. Even when some bigs were struggling, other bigs may be like, okay, well, he's struggling. Why am I not playing? No, instead, he was there motivating and trying to help Duren get better and improve, which he has. He's been a great veteran in the locker room. Dennis Schroeder has already seems like he loves the team. Like, he's over here hustling on the floor, laughing with the guys in the locker room, on the bench, constantly jumping around. Like, the veterans on this team, the locker room, and specifically Tobias Harris and Malik Beasley, those guys have been just absolutely fantastic. And congratulations to Malik for setting the record. His name goes down in history, in Pistons history. His name will always be there. So this has been a fun, great season. They don't do this without the vets. But as you can see, my dog is losing her mind and barking at the door. So I had to get to that. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out.